Hello and welcome to today's video cast for the 30-Day Body Reboot Challenge. Today I'm excited to be interviewing Dr. Ken Berry, a family physician he's going to have to remind me where he's located because it was some small town in the United States, wasn't it, Berry? Ken.
Yeah, it's in Tennessee. It's my office is in Camden, but I live in Metropolitan Holiday, which is a joke because there's like 800 people who live there. So.
Oh, wow. That's so small.
Yeah,
Hey?
Yeah. Very small.
No, so then I don't feel bad that I can't remember what it was.
No, it's forgivable.
And you have a family practice in the Berry Clinic, and you are the author of Lies My Doctor Told Me, which is what I would like to talk to you about. What a fantastic book. I just read it. And I want you here because I think it's a very important thing for people to hear, especially from a medical doctor. So tell me, first of all, Ken, how did you, as a family physician, get into more of the holistic side of medicine?
Well, three reasons. I've always been kind of an iconoclastic person. I've never really just bowed down to the powers that be. I always try to be an individual thinker. And just because, some authority tells me something, I don't always believe that. I'll act on it and I'll read about it and study about it, but I tend to form my own opinion later on about that. And then several things that I encountered while in medical school kind of threw up my spidey sense, is what I call it. Like, what? Wait a minute, that can't be right. But I was so busy in medical school, I didn't have time to research it at the time. So I just filed it away for later research. And then finally in practice, I was guilty of telling patients, don't eat nuts and seeds if you have diverticulosis because it'll flare up you'll have diverticulitis. And it made so much common sense to me that the little seeds will get trapped and all that stuff. And turns out that's complete and utter bullcrap. There's no truth to that whatsoever. Actually, nuts and seeds are protective against diverticulitis. But I myself was guilty of telling patients that for probably 6 years in the beginning of my medical practice before I found the medical study that showed me that I was an idiot. And so I stopped saying that. And that's actually one of the lies in the book, is that nuts and seeds, they don't cause diverticulitis at all. And so just little things like that in my practice that I would go, that's odd. And the more I read about it, it was like, no, it's not even true. And I've been telling people this. And so the reason that I named the book Lies My Doctor Told Me instead of Medical Myths or something a little less, rough, is that if your hairdresser tells you, oh, you should eat lots of whole grains, then she's just your hairdresser. You can't hold her liable. She's not expected to know what you should eat and not eat. And so that's just her gossiping and talking. But if a board certified doctor or a nutritionist or a dietitian, someone who's supposed to know, it's their job to know, if they tell you you should eat lots of whole grains, then to me that equates with a lie, because you should know. That's your job. And you didn't know, and you gave somebody bad advice, and it could really harm their health.
Yeah. And it's almost that the doctors, I think people need to realize the doctors they're not taught that. They're not supposed to know that. Unfortunately, we have to quit. For the majority of you, you're one in a million that, you've gone out and you've researched it yourself and you've educated yourself. But in general, a doctor is not taught nutrition.
Not at all. That's exactly true. Yeah. For the first few years of my practice, I was overweight. My hemoglobin A1C was up. My triglycerides were up. I was the fat doctor who would go into the exam room and say, now, Miss McGillicuddy, you need to lose some weight. I was that doctor for a few years, and that really left a bad taste in my mouth. I kind of like to lead by example. And so that really drove me crazy when I would look in the mirror. I was like, okay, let's get ready to go to work and tell people how to fit, as I'm looking at my gut hanging over my belt. And that's like, I can't do that anymore. And so I got to.
Oh,
sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm on do disturb.
Oh. Okay, there
Sorry,
you are.
I'm back.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's on do not disturb. I don't know how that happens. But anyway, so I was this fat doctor who would go and have to go in and tell people to lose weight. And I hated that. So I thought I must have missed something in my nutrition class. And so I got up in the attic and I dug out all my notes and all my books and stuff that we had learned nutrition from. And I'm sure all of your people watching right now are thinking, oh, it was probably this huge stack of, right? No, I could hold it in one hand.
I was just probably a piece of paper.
It was one tiny, I don't even want to call it a textbook. It was a tiny little paperback and some notes. And we had a half semester of nutrition during which our professor was from New Zealand. And all I remember about the class was the funny way that he said pasta, because he was a brittle diabetic, and he told us how he controlled his diabetes by eating lots of servings of whole wheat pasta every day.
Oh my God.
That was literally the extent of my medical school nutrition education. And so I was fat. And so I thought, okay, I'll start eating lots of pasta and see if that helps. And so I went very low fat, high carb, tons of whole grains, lots of fresh fruit juices. And I started jogging, and I did that for a couple of months, and I gained 10 pounds.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, that didn't work. So
No.
why didn't that work? And then the iconoclast in me came out and said, well, there's something. I obviously don't know what I'm talking about. And so I basically went back to school as an individual and learned human nutrition for the very first time in my career.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, and if I hadn't had that personal self-awakening of being, dude, you're the fat doctor going in telling people to lose weight, and how just incongruous that was, it's like, that's really what you get paid for? Wow, that's weird. And so I had to fix that, and I did, but the high carb, low fat didn't fix it. I stumbled upon Mark Sisson's book, The Primal Blueprint. I stumbled upon Cordain's book, Paleo Solution. And then also an old paperback copy of Robert Atkins, the Atkins Diet,
right,
which was super high fat, high protein.
Yep.
And I read all three and memorized them. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is the exact opposite of what made me gain 10 pounds. So let me try this and see if this works. And by George, I lost 20 pounds in a month, felt better. Triglycerides came down, A1C came down. And so basically that's how I live now, is I'm paleo, primal, ancestral, pretty heavy keto, but that's how I keep my fit figure that I have now.
Yeah. And what do you say then to your clients now when they're coming in with all these problems? Do you actually go ahead and start with the basis of nutrition?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I tell patients all the time, if you have a sick dog and you take the dog to the veterinarian, one of the very first things the vet asks is, what are you feeding this dog? That applies to humans too.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you have a sick human, what are you feeding this human? And so I kind of use that funny story to break the ice. And then I'm like, okay, so let's talk about your diet. And there's a lot of these people who are on 3 or 4 medications for their diabetes, 2 medications for their cholesterol, and 3 medications for their blood pressure. And they're like, so you want to talk about my food?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I do. And then 6 months later, when they're off 7 of their 9 meds, they're about their food.
Right. I loved your first opening sentence, and I'm going to read it. This book will upset many doctors. It may even upset your doctor. That is a good sign. You either need to work on the relationship between you and your doctor or find a new one.
Mm-hmm.
Love that.
That's
I think that's something that some people, they don't even consider. They don't think, oh, geez, maybe I should just go find myself a different doctor. I mean, here in Canada, we, of course, because we have free medical, doctors are hard to come by. And I'm always trying to encourage people, then pay out of pocket. Your health is worth it. Yeah. Go to a naturopath. Go to see a medicine practitioner.
Oh, absolutely. It never ceases to amaze me that people will pay out of pocket for their cable and for their cell phone, right? And for their manicure, but it offends them to pay out of pocket for the most important thing in their world, which is their health.
Yeah. Or pay for some people a lot of money for prescription pills every month when that could have been their call to the naturopath, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So let's talk about a few of the common medical myths that you talk about in your book that I definitely related to, and I know that a lot of my clients will relate to. And it's what I see most common in here, like common mistakes in here and the myths that people believe in. The first one that I just loved was the fat myth, and you kind of got into that a bit, but your analogy of, if we want to fatten up the pig, we don't give it bacon, butter, and fat. We give them grain. So tell me about that, because that's still, even though fat is so popular right now, still to this day, I had a young nurse in here yesterday who flat out was like, oh my God, I could never do a ketogenic diet. That sounds like I would just keel over and die. Like, what's going to happen to me? Basically,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And those of us like you and I who are preaching to the choir, it feels like that this is becoming quickly mainstream. But I read an article the other day, as a research article, where the guy, basically paleo, keto, ancestral, 90% of the population in the US and Canada have never heard of it.
Yeah, that
Or
blows
they
my
maybe
mind.
just, it seems crazy, right? But or they maybe just vaguely, oh yeah, I heard something about the caveman diet. I don't know what that means. But we feel like it's becoming mainstream, but we're actually nowhere near a tipping point yet.
Wow.
But we're getting there. And I think it's a very exciting time to do what we do, because it's coming. The tipping point's coming. There's no doubt, because this makes perfect sense. And most importantly of all, it works.
It works.
That's the beauty of it. It works, and it's permanent. Everybody can follow a paleo keto for the rest of their life easily. Yeah. You don't have to measure, you don't have to count, you don't have to chronicle, and you don't have to do any of that crap. You just eat good food until you're full, and then you're done. It's so easy. It's really awesome. And so I can't wait until it reaches that tipping point. But still, 90% of the population think that whole grain is a good thing. They still do. Yeah. And I actually had a patient today, you'll love this. I'd already had the talk with him about stopping bread and sugars and all the stuff. And he came in today and he was so proud. And he said, "You'll be so proud. I'm not eating any bread at all. I switched to whole grain."
What?
Yeah, not kidding.
You're like, oh,
and this
no.
happens. And I'm like, okay, so let's go over this again. No, and that happens all the time, because what we're doing is we're shifting their paradigm. And when you shift and it's really hard for just regular people to have their paradigm shifted. They don't like it. It's like having a tooth pulled. And so they'll just be nodding like, oh yeah, I get it. I understand what you're saying. And they won't have a damn clue that whole grain bread is the devil. That's no better than the bunny bread, the white bread that they were eating before. It's no better, but they really think they've done something by switching. And so we're moving towards that tipping point, but I can't wait. But 90% of the population still thinks whole grain's a good thing.
I am so shocked to hear that, to be honest, because I'm like you. I'm in it. I'm in so deep in the world that I think, wow, this is exploding. But you're right.
And it is, but it's still a very small explosion. So. Yeah, it is exploding, but it's a very small explosion. Right. But we're working on that. We're working on that, right?
We are. We're setting bombs off everywhere, right?
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so as a practitioner, you're sitting here handing out these high fat, ketogenic diets. So what's happening to people's cholesterol when you're doing this? These are always the questions. What's happening here?
And some people are terrified when I start talking about this. And when I recommend the books and when I say, okay, here's what you're going to eat and here's what you're going to avoid. But then when they come back in 3 months and their triglycerides are the lowest they've been in 10 years and their hemoglobin A1C has went from 8.9 down to 6.2, and they actually had to stop one of their diabetes medications because they were getting low blood sugars. And so then they're on fire. They're really excited about that, because the truth of the matter is there's a very small subpopulation of people who want to take pills. They want a magic pill. They want a pill to fix it. But the majority of the population doesn't want to take a pill. They kind of hate that, but they feel like they're chained to it. They have to, because their doctor told them to, that they needed it. And so they feel like they have to do that. But many people are so happy when they don't have to take that pill anymore. And I love telling them that news. You can throw that in the garbage. How about that?
And without suffering. I think people kind of associate changing diet with, well, then I have to starve. I have to eat nothing but steamed broccoli and chicken for the rest of my life, and life's going to suck. it's like,
Yeah,
oh
and they'll say,
my
I'll
gosh,
tell them all about their triglycerides and their A1C, and now their inflammatory markers have returned to normal, and they'll be nodding, and then they'll say, yeah, and I feel so good too.
yeah.
Like that's the best thing is like I feel so good, and I can sleep again. It's really awesome.
Yeah. And one of the other myths that I like too was that we need dairy in order to get calcium. It's one of the most
Yeah,
common questions I'm asked on my blog and in my groups and stuff like that is I'm always asked because I always start women off with a dairy-free diet because unfortunately dairy
absolutely,
does happen to be high food sensitivity. It's not necessarily
absolutely.
bad, some of it, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
tell us
Oh yeah.
about that.
So I don't know how it is in Canada, but in the U.S., we had an ad campaign a few years back about milk does a body good,
Oh
and then
yeah,
all
we
the
have that.
female. Okay, yeah, yeah. So all the beautiful female celebrities that had the milk mustache, and
Yeah.
women really latched onto that, and they believed that, full force.
Yeah.
And so we had the Citracal and Oscal, and they were taking their calcium, and so really taking calcium supplements is not a good thing
No.
either. But trying to get your calcium from milk is just a travesty because liquid milk, and I tell women this, and this is how I get them to stop because I can tell them all the science and they're just looking at me like, yeah, okay, but don't I need calcium? And then when I tell them, the reason that mammals give their babies milk is so that their baby will gain weight as fast as possible. And then I give them this look like this. I'm like,
Do you get it?
right. And then they're like, oh,
Oh, yeah.
oh, and then you see the light bulb go on, and then that's it. They're done with milk. They
Yeah.
never touch it again. Yeah,
You just
yeah,
have
yeah.
to relate it to weight loss and they'll be like, oh
That's
yeah,
it.
okay.
They're done. Yeah, they're like, okay, but seriously though, milk is a terrible way to try to get calcium. It's a terrible way to try to get vitamin D. Milk is supplemented with vitamin D, but a lot of people don't realize it's vitamin D2. It's not
Right.
D3.
Yeah.
And so the most of it, the milk inflames your gut so much that the D2 is not even absorbed. It just goes right through.
Yeah.
And I tell my ladies, everybody thinks that skim milk is the milk you should be drinking if you're trying to lose weight. And then I tell them about the article back in the 1940s where a doctor was recommending if you want to gain weight, drink skim milk because the sugar content is so much higher.
Yeah.
And then you're not satiated because there's no fat in it. And so you can drink a lot of it and get a lot of that sugar to gain weight. And then again, they're like, oh, okay, never mind. I'll stop the milk.
Yeah. I shock my clients when I tell them that instead of putting skim milk in their coffee, that you could put a little liquid whipped cream in it and their jaws just drop. And I'm like, yeah,
Yes.
it's like my
Yeah.
favorite thing to get when I go to Starbucks, liquid whip
Oh
in my
man,
coffee. And people are like,
absolutely.
you're kidding.
Absolutely, yeah. Down here we call it heavy cream or whipping cream, and that's
Yeah.
what I tell them. I'm like, why are you putting skim milk in your coffee? That's dumb. Get
Yeah.
some whipping cream. It's heaven. It's the most heavenly coffee you've ever had. Or put some grass-fed butter in there,
Yeah.
and
That's
it's
what
the
I
best coffee
usually
you've
do.
ever had in
Starbucks
your life.
hasn't caught on to the grass-fed butter
No,
yet, so I'm
you think
waiting
they
on
would?
that. You
You'd think they'd have an organic grass-fed butter, but they don't yet. Yeah,
No,
maybe
even here
soon.
they only just recently got coconut milk and almond milk. They
Mm,
usually just had soy milk, which is
soy, yeah.
like the devil. So
Yeah. Most of them down here have heavy cream now because I've yelled at them so much.
yeah.
But every now and then there will still be one that only has half and half. And I'll tell them I want heavy cream, and they're like, "Oh yeah, okay." And they get the half and half. I'm like, I didn't say half. I said heavy cream,
Yeah,
and then they don't
heavy.
have it. So yeah, heavy. I don't want the half and half. I don't want half nothing.
No, no. And
Right?
I do
Yeah.
you also get the moms that come in that are panicked that their child might be lactose intolerant, but oh, God forbid they take the milk out of their diet. Like, what's going to
Yeah.
happen to them if I don't
Exactly.
give my kid milk? And I say, well,
Yeah.
neither of my children had a milk bottle after they finished weaning.
Exactly.
And
And when they're done with your breast milk, they're done with milk.
they're done with
That's
milk.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's
That
going to
should be the
shock a lot
rule.
of people to hear that, to be
It will.
honest.
It
Yeah.
will, and that's okay. But and I don't think milk is necessarily as bad for a 2 or a 3-year-old. It's still milk from another species, which obviously is weird. But you're wanting them to grow and gain weight, so it makes a little
Yeah.
more sense. But an adult drinking milk that's silly. Unless you love it, you just want it as an occasional treat, like you'd have a piece of birthday cake. you should never drink milk. It's not a nutritious food.
And so what about in your world? Like, do you eat cheese and things like that? Like the
Yeah.
more,
Yeah. I have found that real cheese, like Parmesan, cheddar, Swiss, the real cheeses, right?
Yeah.
They don't inflame my gut at all.
Yeah.
And if they did, I would avoid them. And then also heavy cream doesn't, and a lot of people don't realize, but heavy cream has a tiny bit of carb in it. It still has, and it also has some whey in it as well. If you've ever taken heavy cream and made butter, you've seen the whey come out of it. And so it does have a little milk protein and carb in there, but not much. And it doesn't inflame me. So I still use it. But a lot of people can't touch any dairy at all.
No.
And, unless it's just a full fat butter. And so that's unfortunate, but yeah, real cheeses don't bother me. And I tell people it's your option. If you can tell it inflames you and makes you feel bad, just don't eat them.
Yeah. And so what do you usually tell your patients to get calcium, how to get calcium?
You get calcium from your green vegetables. You get tons of calcium that way. You get tons of calcium in fish. And we make a lot of bone broth at our house. We get bones from the butcher. And I hope that also is becoming more mainstream, which I know it's not yet, but hopefully it will one day, because it's so healthy and so good for you. And when you make your own bone broth, it's going to have some calcium in there.
Yeah.
Now, if you buy the bone broth in the box from the supermarket, it probably has no calcium at all.
Yeah.
But if you make your own, it has a lot of calcium. And there's tons of calcium. There's more than enough calcium in the modern diet if you're eating paleo keto.
Yeah.
You get plenty of calcium.
Yeah. I always tell people to eat the Swiss chard. Swiss chard has more absorbable calcium in it than milk does. So
that's exactly right. And I grow it on my back porch every year. And if the
so
peacocks
good,
don't eat it, I eat it all. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, a couple servings of that a week. Got nothing to worry about.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. And it just makes milk unnecessary. It's just it's a treat if you love it. If you don't love it, don't ever touch it again.
And I was reading recently, in a glass of like organic grass-fed milk, you're still looking at 50 plus hormones a glass.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the organic.
Right. And a lot of those hormones, that's right. A lot of those hormones are put in there by the cow herself.
Yes.
To help her baby grow and gain weight as fast as possible. So we're back to that. And I'll tell you a myth I've been seeing online a lot from more natural practitioners is they're promoting organic raw milk, unprocessed milk. And I don't have a problem with it. I don't think you're going to die if you drink it like, the federal government does. But there's no vitamin D in that at all.
Right.
The only reason milk has vitamin D is because we add vitamin D2 to it. Right. It's fortified with that. Unless the cows were fed a diet rich in vitamin D, there's not going to be any vitamin D in that organic unprocessed milk. And I've heard a couple of the bigger natural experts say that there's more vitamin D in that. And I've never seen any research that shows that's true. So you don't get vitamin D from even unprocessed raw milk. You probably need to, and especially living in Canada, you probably have to take a supplement, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
High amounts in the wintertime anyways, of course.
Yeah.
Right?
And I take 5,000 of D3 every day, even in Tennessee, unless it's in the heat of the summer. I just don't get enough sun.
No, and you don't. And something else you touched on was like get your vitamin D from the sun. I of course also preach this too. Like people are so afraid of the sun right now, and I think we're causing a serious epidemic, and I think it's contributing to the autoimmune rise. And
absolutely,
absolutely. Even these little kids don't ever see sunlight right now because they're in the full bathing suits that are covering all of their arms. It's like the fear of sun. I'm like, what? The sun is life.
Yeah. 70 out of 100 patients, I check their vitamin D25 level. It's low. 70%.
Wow.
Yep. And that's in Tennessee, which, we're further south than you by quite a bit.
Yeah.
But still, we're really not far enough south to get your full supply of vitamin D from just only the sun.
Right. Yeah. And that recommended dose here in Canada is for an adult is 1,000 a day. You can't even get supplements that are higher than 1,000 IU.
Oh, really?
Per serving. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. We have 5,000 IUs readily available over the counter here.
Yeah, because people will get all proud of themselves. Well, I take 500 IU vitamin D a day. And I'm like, you want to bump that to about 5,000, but get them checked first.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you, I check thousands of vitamin D levels a year. And last year, out of, I would probably guesstimate 4,000 vitamin D levels I checked, I had two high.
Too high, right? Okay.
out of 4,000. Yeah. And I've heard a lot of natural practitioners also talk about, oh, you don't want to take too much vitamin D. You could get vitamin D toxicity.
Yes.
And I've actually researched that quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
No one has ever died of a vitamin D overdose. No one has ever had a permanent bad outcome from overdosing on vitamin D. One guy was taking a supplement, and this was a case study, and he was taking like 1.2 million units a day. But he was doing it accidentally because they'd mislabeled the supplement. They're now out of business. But I forget, his vitamin D level was like 200 and something. And he was achy, and he was kind of fatigued and tired. He didn't feel real great. But as soon as they stopped that and his vitamin D came down, he was back to normal. So
Right.
don't be afraid if your vitamin D is 100 or 101 or 102. It's meaningless. It's not going to hurt you at all. Take your vitamin D, please.
Please. Yeah.
Please
People
take
don't
your vitamin
realize
D.
the effects of vitamin D and what it does for the system, and it acts like a steroid in
Absolutely.
the body. And
Absolutely.
it's amazing. I can't say enough good things about that.
That's exactly
And
right.
yeah. And so another thing, this will hit home with many of my listeners. That's a myth. If you would only exercise more, you would lose weight.
Yeah.
So
And
this
all the
would get
trainers,
people mad, I think.
yeah, all the trainers out there are going to be
Yeah.
mad at me. And I'm sorry, I love you
I get
guys,
so
but
worried about that. Yeah.
yeah, but let's just be very objective about this.
Yeah.
There are multiple very large, very meaningful medical studies of tens of thousands of patients that show definitively that increasing your exercise is a terrible way to lose weight. It just does not work. It doesn't work at all. I'm sorry, I love you, but it doesn't work. Okay. Now, it's great for your brain, it's great for your muscles, it's great for your bones, it's great for your body in thousands of ways. And I highly recommend it. I'm not anti exercise.
Yeah.
But if your New Year's resolution is, by George, I'm going to join the gym and I'm going to exercise, no, you're wasting your money. You're not going to lose a pound doing that. Okay. You might get healthier, but you're not going to lose weight in the gym. It doesn't happen that way.
No.
It just doesn't work. You have to, 80 to 90% of the battle, depending on the person and your individual biochemistry, it's food, it's diet.
Yes.
If you don't fix your, and I tell patients, you can live on the treadmill. And if you don't fix your diet, you'll be that fat person on the treadmill. That's what'll happen. Yeah.
So the people that we see that are in the gym, that have the rock solid bodies and that are in there working out for 2 hours every day, weightlifting, would you say that's more genetics than anything? Like the fact that they have those genetics and they've got good metabolism?
Well, they work like dogs. And I mean, if you build your muscles bigger, then they show more. And so, if you're doing 1,000 crunches a day, you're more likely to have a six pack because it's going to be sticking out through however much fat you've got on your belly. But in order to decrease the amount of fat on your belly so you can actually see the six pack, you have to fix your diet. Yeah. Otherwise, you might have the best six pack in the world, but you will never see it because there's 3 inches of fat on top of it, right? And when you fix your diet, that fat, that energy reserve starts to go away, and then all of a sudden, hey, there's my six pack.
Yeah.
But you don't reveal your six pack in the gym. You build it, but you reveal it at the dinner table by what you eat and what you don't eat. That's how you get rid of the fat, so you can actually see the progress that you've made with building muscle in the gym. But a large portion of that is genetic. But now don't make me say that all of it's genetic, because they work for that muscle, absolutely. But that hard work doesn't burn the fat. They burn that fat at the table.
Yeah. I used to, I feel like half my life, I would beat myself up so bad because I couldn't run. And I thought if I could run, I'd be skinny. I believed
exactly right. Yeah,
I try and run and
yeah.
Terrible. I just beat myself up for it.
And that was my knee-jerk reaction when I was that fat doctor and I looked in the mirror and said, dude, you got to lose weight. My first reaction was
start running
calories and start jogging. So I'd go out and jog for an hour, right? And it was just ignorance because I had no idea what I was even talking about or what I was even doing. Yeah.
My husband does that. He's like, I need to lose weight. And he'll just go start running. And I'm like, maybe cut down on the beer you're drinking. That might help more.
Yeah. I can see him running with his six pack as he's running.
Exactly.
No, that's not going to work. Sorry.
Yeah. And how many women that I see every single day that tell me, Well, my husband or my friend or or my trainer tells me I need to do more cardio, just exercise more. And, she's like, oh, I work out every day on my treadmill for X amount of time. And I'm like, stop. And so many of these women right now have adrenal fatigue or just are highly stressed, which is making them overweight. And I tell them the worst thing you could do is run. You're going to be making yourself fatter because you've got high cortisol already.
Yeah, you can actually stress your body and inflame your body by too much chronic cardio.
Yeah.
And I love that Mark Sisson has named it chronic cardio, because that gives it that little negative taste in your mouth, like, oh, he does chronic cardio. That's I love that, right? Because that describes it exactly as it is. Because if you just call it cardio, that makes it sound beneficial. Like, oh, the only way to train your heart is to do cardio. No. That's wrong. That's totally backwards. Chronic cardio is not good for any part of you. And there are some long distance runners out there who don't like to hear that. Yeah. And I tell people, if you love to run half marathons or marathons, go do it. It's fine, but it's not going to help you lose weight. It's not going to help your long-term health.
No.
Right. That's not what it's for. It's your hobby and you love it. So go do it. It's fine. But no, there's no research that shows that helps your long-term health. I think the guy who made marathoning popular, died at like 55 or 60 with a heart attack. Yeah. And that's just one, it's just one guy, but still,
I'm not surprised.
I mean, it's not good. Yeah.
No. And the workout that I give all my clients comes from Mark Sisson's, probably.
Absolutely.
He's got it right. And I love it.
Yeah. And I'd play this little mental game with my patients. I'll say, let's go back in time 30,000 years. Right? Okay, here we are. And here's your great grandfather times 300, right? And so I want you to ask him, hey, let's go run a 5K. Let's go jog for an hour. And watch his facial expression. He'll be like, you're my offspring? Wow, I'd like to kill you right now, because that's retarded. No, that's dumb. Nobody 30,000 years ago went and ran a half marathon. They never did that in their entire life. They never drank anything but water. They never ate anything but a keto paleo diet. And when they were old men and women, they were healthy and lean, and they probably still had a six-pack, and they probably still had all their teeth because they had no cavities. I mean, there's multiple instances of that in the fossil record, where you've got this really old skull and they still have all their teeth, unless one's knocked out by a saber-toothed tiger, because they didn't eat all the processed sugar that we eat these days that cause all the cavities. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Mark Sisson, he hit the nail right on the head with grok, I think, and how, you lift heavy, you run fast, and you walk a lot, and you lay around a lot, because that's what they did. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said before, it's not to say that exercise is bad. That's not what we're saying, anybody, because everybody will take this and run with it. I've actually had people get downright very angry with me when I've told them they should slow down on their exercise, and they were pissed off and didn't want to hear it. And it's not to say you shouldn't exercise. Exercise is very good for you. It's chronic cardio that's a problem. And if you're looking to lose weight,
right, it's just not going to help you with that. That's exactly right.
And there's so much science to back that up on that one. Like when they've tested people that have like run on treadmills for X amount of time every day, and there's been absolutely zero difference in their weight by the end of it.
Yeah. The human body is very intelligent. It's smarter than the average doctor. And so when you're the calorie deficit thing, that ties right in with the chronic cardio.
Yes, that's where I was going to go to next.
Yeah, and so if I'm going to cut my calories back and I'm going to exercise more, your body's not dumb. It just lowers your base metabolic rate. Boom, problem solved. And so you don't lose any weight from that. You might lose 5 or 10 in the beginning, but everybody knows when they try to use the calorie deficit, you'll lose 3, 5, 7, 10 pounds, and that's it. You're done. You don't lose any more, because your body has fixed what it sees as a problem. It's like, oh my gosh, we're running constantly and starving to death. I better lower our basal metabolic rate. And so it does that, and it fixes what it perceives as was the problem, which totally screws up your weight loss plan. But that's the human body is very wise and very intelligent. It doesn't need a lot of help from you. It just needs you to eat the right stuff and live the right lifestyle, and it'll take care of all the rest. It's actually quite simple once you just give up and say, okay, fine, I'm just going to feed it what it wants and exercise like it wants me to, and everything goes back to normal. It's kind of like magic. But yeah, the calorie deficit myth is so dumb. Any doctor who still purports that to his or her patients is literally unread at this
Yeah.
point. I mean, I don't even know how with a straight face I could go into a patient's room and say, just burn more than you eat, and that's it, you're done. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's so sophomoric and childish that I can't even believe grown people give that advice to other people.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you're like me too, I'm sure, where it's like when people are going, well, should I be keeping track of my calories? Nope. You shouldn't be.
Yeah. And
Is
I'm
that
actually,
normal? No, it's not.
no.
You think
Yeah.
our
I'm
grandma
actually,
tracked calories to lose weight?
right. Yeah. Let's go back in time,
Let's go
30,000
back in
years and tell,
time.
right. Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
I'm about to do a pretty long, lengthy YouTube video about how the calorie deficit myth and the calorie theory of weight gain and weight loss is just completely ludicrous. It's meaningless. It doesn't help you at all. It helps people who are looking for busy work. Some people love keeping columns of numbers and
Yeah.
writing down everything. I mean, if and if you love that, then do it, but it's not going to help you reach any of your goals unless your goal is to have a big, thick book full of numbers written down. But the calorie deficit myth has destroyed so many people's weight loss dreams that it's terrible to contemplate how many people have just said, you know what, screw it, I'm never going to lose weight. Where are the donuts?
Yeah.
Because and then doctors will tell you to do this thing that's absolutely been proven time and time again is not going to work. Then when you go back and you haven't lost any weight, then they put the guilt trip on you because the bad advice that they gave you didn't work.
Right.
Does anybody else see the problem with that?
Yeah.
That's really a terrible way to treat your patients, but that happens every day in America, and I suspect Canada too.
Oh, all the time. Yeah. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. And it's also, the whole calorie is a calorie that you talk about as well. And that's another myth that just drives me nuts. Like systems like the Weight Watchers, which is actually can be very successful for some women. I don't want to totally bash it. However, it's a point system where it's like, well, you could have a chocolate bar as long as you don't go over X amount of points. And that drives me nuts because I try and explain to people it's a calorie is not a calorie. They all react. It reacts differently in the body.
Exactly. Yeah. And I can totally understand how someone walking on the street would buy the calorie is a calorie myth. It makes perfect sense. A calorie equals a calorie. Well, duh. Yeah. It even sounds the same. But for learned people, for doctors and nutritionists and dietitians to buy that without thinking for 1 second. So wait a minute. You're telling me that 100 calories of sugar is metabolized exactly the same as 100 calories of coconut oil, right? If you don't know better than that, then you should just hang up your stethoscope because you don't even need to be talking out loud in public because you need to go back to school. If you think that those things are metabolized, and doctors of more than anybody should realize this, we should remember the Krebs cycle and gluconeogenesis and all these huge diagrams they used to put on the board and make us memorize. It was very painful, by the way. But we should remember nowhere in any of those diagrams was the word calorie. Nowhere. Because the human body doesn't know what a calorie is. The human body doesn't recognize calories like we talk about them. It's a foreign concept to your body. Your body knows what fat is and proteins and fatty acids and amino acids and carbs and sugars and starches. It's well aware of which of the different pathways to send that macronutrient down for digestion. Because guess what, docs? We don't burn calories. We're not little ovens, okay? We biochemically digest nutrients, and there are multiple different pathways that those nutrients go down. And that a doctor doesn't remember his biochemistry is beyond all belief to me.
Wow, that's a great way to put it all, actually, for people to understand.
Right. Yeah. And the calories, the list tables of calories. Oh, a donut has this many calories. The way they come up with that is they put the donut in a little oven and they burn it up. And the oven's surrounded by water, and they measure the temperature of the water before and after they burn the donut up at sea level. That's very important. It has to be at sea level. And then that tells them how many calories of heat energy was in the donut.
Wow.
They do the same thing with every food. That's where that number comes from, is they burn it up in a thing called a bomb calorimeter, right? And so that has nothing to do with how human beings digest food. It has nothing to do with it at all. And so I don't even know how it ever became something that people with initials after their name even talked about intelligently, because it has nothing to do with mammalian biochemical digestion whatsoever. It
Right.
has nothing to do with it. So why are you even talking about that? That'd be like if we started talking about about food in millimeters. Oh, I'm going
Right.
to eat a millimeter of what? Your body doesn't know
That's
what a
great.
millimeter of donut is.
Yeah.
That's silly. Why are you even using that as a unit of measurement? Because your body doesn't know what that is, you know? It's like, oh, I'm going to eat 42 cents worth of donut, and then that's the same as 42 cents worth of bacon. No,
No, it
no,
doesn't
sorry.
work
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
no.
What a great
And
way to put it.
the calorie concept is just as stupid as what I just said.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. I'm going to leave it on that note, Ken, because I love that.
Okay. All right.
And now you've got tons of little educational videos there on your Facebook page. So where can we find you if people want to learn more from you?
Oh, so I'm on Facebook. I think it's kendyberry.md is my Facebook page, and I'm on YouTube, and that's what I'm really loving right now is doing the YouTube. It's
Okay.
Kendy Berry MD with no dot.
Okay.
And then I also have a little Instagram and a little Twitter that I fool around with and try to post educational stuff that shifts paradigms. I try to be a ninja paradigm shifter. I try to shift your calorie belief without you knowing I just did that. That's what I'm trying to do, right?
That's great. Yes. Yes. I'd like to be
Yeah,
your partner in that.
exactly. We'll be ninjas together. Exactly. Yeah. And so the book just came out,
Yep.
I guess 3 weeks ago, not long now. And Amazon tells me it's the number one new release in its category, whatever that's worth. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then, but I'm getting a lot of positive feedback, which is
It's
really
great.
weird because I was certain it was going to suck,
Oh,
but
wow.
maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But yeah, I'm really excited, and I get emails and I get questions every day, and I love answering questions. I always answer
Yeah.
every question on my YouTube videos. When I get a bunch of questions, I'm like up at 2 a.m. answering every single one of them because I'm trying to help these people.
Well, I don't think it's too often that we see a family physician that's coming out and saying this kind of stuff. They're just, you don't see it right now. You just don't. And so I think
No,
that hits home for people, because for a lot of people, that's all they've ever trusted in is their family physician.
right.
So to have you come
And
out and write this book, I think is fantastic.
yeah, and let me just quickly talk about the very last chapter in the book, and it's
Yeah.
addressed to doctors. And all you doctors out there, you might want to read that last chapter of the book, because basically it's a wake-up call to the medical profession. If you guys don't wake up and step it up, okay, people like my interviewer here are going to eat your lunch and send you home, and you're going to be out of business. Nobody's going to value your advice anymore. When you say dumb things like nuts and seeds cause diverticulitis, and the calories, you should really count your calories. When you say dumb stuff like that, you lose all credibility. And then the stuff that you actually do know about, the people, they don't believe you anymore. They don't trust you. I can't tell you how many people have come to me from 100 miles away to come to my clinic because they're like, you're the only doctor I trust in the world. Because I
Yeah.
watched all your YouTube videos, and I know that if you don't know, you'll tell me you don't know. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I will. I'll tell you
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not just going to confabulate some baloney and act like I know what I'm talking about. That's not my style. And so many doctors do that. And you guys really need to read the last chapter. And if you'll email me, I'll send you a free copy of the last chapter, because I know times are tight, right? But you guys got to step it up or you're going to be left behind.
Yeah. And for the listeners, it's a great book. And we've only just scratched the surface, Ken and I, today. There is lots more of the medical myths that are in there, things about your thyroid, your cholesterol. You go through a lot of the main topics that I think, a lot of main myths, I should say, that are in the
Yeah.
medical world that I think everybody should know. And you can get it on Amazon. I'm going to post all the links underneath it. And I do believe Ken's giving away a free copy of his book for the challenge that we're doing. So somebody
Yes,
gets to win a free copy of it. But yes, you can pick it up on
absolutely.
Amazon. I think it was $10. So there's no excuses. Go and get it. And like you say in the book, maybe then pass it on to your doctor, right?
That's exactly right. He might need to read it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Dr. Barry, for coming to us today and talking. And I think I'll probably have you again on the show at a later date
Absolutely.
when
It
I
was a
start.
pleasure. Let's do it again.
Yes, let's do it again when you start your podcast, right?
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know
I was
about
trying
that.
to tell Ken that he should be starting a podcast too. So we'll see.
I don't know.
You're
We'll
already
see.
doing your YouTube. You're well into it. You'd be a
No,
great
that's true.
podcast host.
I'd rather just come on your show. It's so much easier.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, thank you very much. And we will talk
Yes.
to you soon.